everyone, Amy here at Studio 23 for another week of our 50 Artists of the Great Lakes Bay Region Artist Spotlight Series. 50 Artists of the Great Lakes Bay Region is a juried exhibition which takes place every other year here at Studio 23, where a panel of jurors selects 50 local area artists to be featured. In addition to having a piece of artwork in the gallery for the 50 Artists exhibit last September through November, each of the 50 artists is included in our Art Around the City project. Art Around the City is an outdoor exhibition that you can view in downtown and uptown Bay City, Veterans Park, and Bigelow Park around the Bay City Rail Trail. Each of our 50 artists has a work of art reproduced on a metal plate along with some information about the artist. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by two of our 50 artists of the Great Lakes Bay Region, Douglas Barron and Brian Goff. Both Doug and Brian are lifelong Michiganders, as well as being emerging artists who work in oil painting. Douglas Barron focuses on studio work, but also enjoys plein air painting and is known for his realism in oil painting. The four seasons enhance his favorite subjects, landscapes, and architecture found in everyday travels. By applying the strengths of his medium to achieve rich compositions and vibrant hues, Doug transports the viewer to his favorite place and time. You can see a reproduction of Douglas's work on the corner of 4th and Saginaw Streets in downtown Bay City on the side of Violet's Blue. I'm also joined by Brian Goff, who grew up on a small apple orchard, which ingrained in him the impacts of changing seasons, a garden's bounty, and friendly neighbors. The county road landscapes he traversed in his youth, he now sees in terms of sublime shadows and rich panoramas on his journey as an artist. Brian's paintings, with their intensity of color and defining brushstrokes, evoke the underlying strength found in nature and rural life. You can see a reproduction of Brian's work on the corner of 5th and Washington Streets on the side of Herder Music Center. Welcome, Doug and Brian.
Hello, how are you today?
Hi, Amy.
Good. Thank you for taking the time to share with us.
We're happy to do so. Thank you to Studio 23 and the staff there that's made such a great impact on the Great Lakes area. So we'll go ahead and get started then, Amy?
Yeah, go ahead and show us whatever you had planned in your studio there.
Well, we thought we'd give an overview of our studio, kind of a look around in the nooks and crannies, and show some of the things that we use and how our processes takes place as we're painting and we're having a creative effort down here. All right, so Doug's going to take the camera. Sorry if there's any wobbling and so forth. What do you want to do here? Take it off of there? Okay, we're just got to do a little bit of fine tuning here. And okay. Got to flip the screen here. Sorry for technical difficulties. We did practice this. There we go. I'll just have to pick it up though. All right, you got me? Gotta put the finger up there.
Nope, we gotta flip this. Okay.
All right, sorry about that. Technical difficulties. We're artists, not cameramen. So anyways, this is our studio. We have been painting here for a year now, or year and a half. And I thought I was going to show you around and see some of the things that we use every day and kind of give you a little intro as if you were walking through with us. Over here, we start out with a selection of frames where we buy several frames at a time, so you have them and you're ready to go. Especially this time of year when the plein air season's coming up and you might be in a competition or a paint out and you want to have all that stuff on hand and ready to go. A couple of these are Doug's paintings. He works on larger works here of settings in parks and wineries and so forth. So that kind of moves us over to here. This is an old revolving bookcase, and you got everything on here from the extra tubes of paint you might need. Of course, the all-important gloves. If you want to protect yourself and be as safe as possible. Some panels down at the bottom, and little cups for holding walnut oil. These are, of course, your little gallery wrapped canvases. Every once in a while, you go to a paint out, and one of your good friends leaves their favorite painting sweatshirt. I've had this for 3 years now, and Sandy Ackerman, you will get it back. And of course, wire for hanging your paintings, more paintings, some still life vases or vases. And of course, the books on how to paint, don't forget those. So it's all here, little tubes to store paint in when you travel, because sometimes the paint tubes bump into each other, and when they pop a leak, that's just not a good show. Over here, we have some of the gallery wrap things. That moves us into the idea of our painting process. And sometimes when I'm painting a large painting like this, I'll start with a color study. This is an example of a color study. Just a small version to kind of set how I want to make a composition work, get some of the colors in mind, and I'm sort of mixing paint to get it the direction I want it to go, being warm or cool in intensity. And so then I move into a larger version. This one's 24 by 30. And then if you liked it so much, sometimes you'll go ahead and just do another study. Maybe you had some paint left over, or maybe you just like mixing up the colors, and so you just can't help yourself if you want to do a little bit more. I want to take you over here to the TV real quick. In the studio, I use the television monitor, which is hooked up to the computer, of course, and that's where I can slide in the SD card to put in the reference photos that I'm working from. We use all our own photos. So if we're out hiking around in parks or nature conservancies, we will, of course, take a camera and then slide it up on here, and we've got a great reference photo, and I can move it around. A friend of ours pointed out the fact that we do these little pieces of painter's tape to put on here, so if I'm laying out a grid pattern, I can kind of see what's the middle and help myself along that way. All right, so that kind of took care of the, here, I'm going to show you one more color study. This is a street scene on Mackinac Island, and the color study I did here was really fast and dirty, obviously, and I won't ever do anything with this, but this is what we come up with. Again, we're setting the composition, moving things, adjusting a little bit, as it were, to give us a kind of a practice run, if you would. All right, so let's move over to the tabaret and the easel. Here we have my tabaret. This is actually a bench. I've had this for 6 or 7 years. We bought this at Harbor Freight for, I think it was $137. So we just got a piece of glass to go on top. Up here you see a Lazy Susan. This is something I scavenged from a kitchen that we renovated. And it works really great, I have to say. Plus we're reducing, reusing, and recycling, right? All right, so coming back here, this is, again, recycling, just little plastic covers that come on takeout. Use that to cover up the paint when I'm gonna go overnight. Helps it last a little longer. Of course, you got your turpentine. For turpentine, we use exclusively Gamsol. This is not a paid promotion, but this is the lowest odor turpentine that we found. And that's something to be really mindful of, is the odor in your studio. And we wanted to show this too. This is something we found at a workshop. Another painter had it. Sometimes when you get down to the bottom of your paint tubes, it can really be hard on your fingers. So this little crimper, this is the metal version. I highly recommend it. Some scrapers and things like that. Of course, the obligatory brush holder. It all comes together. Got a couple drawers. This is the sunflower painting in support of Ukraine. We'll be posting this in a little bit. Of course, I was working on a triptych earlier this year, and I realized that I need a wider and taller easel, so I got that on my Christmas list, by the way. Anything else that you can think of, Doug, while we're talking? We're all on talking?
Yes, we're going to talk about the fan.
All right, one more thing. We talked a little bit about safety and wearing rubber gloves. You got to be mindful of the oxygen you're breathing. And we just put this in a couple days ago. This is just a little $40 inline fan. And this is exhausting air from the studio to a vent in the ceiling that goes outside. It's not that it's terrible in here because we always crack the windows, but it's just another way to get the fumes that settle and get them out of the building. So with that, I guess I will turn it over to Doug here, and Doug can go through his process and switching over.
Well, again, thank you for joining us today. And it's a beautiful day out, and there's good things that we like with being able to either be in the studio or, as Brian was saying, with plein air painting. When we have so much sunshine out today and there's still enough snow on the ground, we get some really awesome shadows and stuff. But plein air painting is probably not my favorite thing to do. I like it in a more controlled scenario. So I would typically will paint within the studio. One of the things I like about painting in the studio is, again, that control that I feel I have more of. And that is with controlling the light within the studio. Another good friend of ours, painter friend, had recommended these lights, which we can adjust intensity or make them softer. And they work really well for when we have our paint laying on the taburet, so that we're getting those colors that we want to achieve. Again, like Brian was saying, this is my station. It's kind of great that we both can work in the same area. We paint totally different, which is fun, and we get to help each other with our compositions or with color, bouncing back and forth ideas, which is always awesome. So we have that luxury. Not everybody does, but it's great that we have that opportunity. So as I'm doing my process, I generally will use a panel as opposed to canvas, unless I'm doing a gallery wrapped or a larger one. These panels are much more rigid, and they don't bounce as much as compared to working on canvas, if you've ever done a panel compared to painting on it.
They're also opaque. The sun doesn't shine through.
The sun doesn't shine through them, so they work really well outdoors as well. One thing that I start with is similar to Brian. He's holding my device that I use to work on, which is the iPad. And that is stationed right here. And what I will do is I'll start out with the photograph, lay it out, the composition, really sit back and look and make sure it's the composition that I want. Not to promote this. This is a pencil that I actually found while we were traveling in Italy a few years ago. And the reason I like using it, and one of the reasons an artist there had recommended it, is that compared to like a lead-based pencil, this is carbon. And so it doesn't smudge at all, and it doesn't affect the paint. So it's been a great tool that I found. You can find these online. I'll hold the name up so that, because I do really like this compared to a number 2 pencil.
Do they erase?
They do erase. There's erasers that are on them, or you can just use your, a pink eraser, whatever. So they will erase. So you can adjust things as you go. But again, that's the process I like to do. And then I'll start with laying out color. Some examples of our paint, again, as Brian pointed out, we like to recycle, save it. Some people will put their paints in the freezer. This seems to give us some extra working time with our oil-based paints. So again, that's my station. Again, process is more studio driven. We'll go out into the nature plein air paint because it is an awesome way to learn shadows and stuff because they move so quickly. But that's a different topic and a different day. And just really want to thank you for, again, Studio 23, Amy, letting us show you our studio.
Any questions, Amy?
Well, I think you just have such a beautiful studio space with all of your, so organized with your lazy Susans and your spinning shelves and even your ventilation. Having that is fantastic. I think sometimes when you're oil painting and you're right there in it, you don't notice that buildup of fumes and smell. and your space is just so clean and professional. Thank you for sharing it with us. That was really nice to see.
Thanks for everything. You guys are awesome.
Well, thank you both for sharing with us today. I really appreciate that. And you can see both Doug and Brian's work when you're moseying around downtown Bay City. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Come back next week for another edition.